Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world that's damp, dirty, and absolutely unforgiving the Middle Ages. You're not a knight. You're not a noble. You're just you. And let's be honest, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up in a hay-filled hovel, and the first thing you notice is that it's cold. Not turn up the thermostat cold, more like, I didn't know. Breath could freeze cold. There's a damp heaviness in the air clinging to the stone walls and your threadbare wool blanket. You slept on a mattress stuffed with straw, and now your back is offering its formal resignation. A mouse scurries under your pallet. Maybe it's the same one from last night. Maybe it brought friends. Either way, you're not on speaking terms. Your nose wrinkles at the layered aroma, sweat smoke, damp earth, and something that smells suspiciously like goat. Because it is goat. You live with animals literally. The family's few livestock sleep inside to keep warm. It's like nature's version of central heating, only with more bleeding and droppings. You roll over to a view of the rafters above where spiders have been busier than you've ever been at your desk job. Light seeps through the cracks in the wooden shutters, but there's no glass because window glass is a luxury for the wealthy. You, on the other hand, get ventilation and frostbite in one delightful package. Getting up isn't a choice. It's a necessity. If you stay too long in bed, you might actually freeze. Or your lord might fine your family for laziness. Yes, that's a thing. You swing your feet down onto the dirt floor, which is more mud than solid ground. Some medieval homes even layered their dirt floors with rushes or straw to soak up the filth. Spoiler, they rarely change them. Historians still argue whether these rushes were cleaned regularly or just left to rot into a medieval compost of crumbs, hair fleas, and animal droppings. You can probably guess where the evidence points. There's no privacy, no bedroom door. Just one smoky room where everyone, parents, siblings, and occasionally strangers, sleeps together. You awkwardly maneuver around a cousin who may or may not have peed slightly during the night. Hard to tell. Everything smells like it. A shout from outside jolts you fully awake. It's the town crier, or possibly just a neighbor yelling about their missing chicken again. Either way, it's the closest thing you have to an alarm clock. And guess what? You're already late. You reach for your tunic. It's the same one you wore yesterday, and the day before that. Actually, you've worn this tunic for 3 weeks straight. It's wool itchy and somewhere between beige and mud. You notice a loose thread, but sewing it requires a needle, and those are valuable. Your underclothes, if you're lucky enough to have them, are even worse. Let's just say hygiene hasn't invented underwear as a daily luxury yet. As you get dressed, you think about where your day's headed. You're a peasant, so your options are limited. Hard labor, harder labor, or dying early from malnutrition. But first, breakfast. Not so fast. You need to relieve yourself. There's no bathroom, no outhouse. You grab a bucket or a wooden chamber pot if your family's fancy and head outside. The communal pit sits behind the hovel past a patch of something trying to be a garden. The toilet is a shared hole in the ground, surrounded by buzzing flies and judgmental crows. You try not to breathe through your nose. People in towns might use cesspits or simply empty their chamber pots into the street. Gardy-loo being the traditional shout before dumping human waste from an upper window. You don't live in a city, but the smell still lingers because the pit doesn't get emptied often. It's more of a cover it with dirt and pretend situation. On your way back inside, your bare feet catch a stone, and you stumble. Shoes. Those are for when it snows. Maybe. The soles of your feet are tough from walking on uneven ground, but that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. You just try not to limp. The cold bites again as you re-enter your home. A tiny fire smolders in the hearth, giving off more smoke than warmth. The chimney is just a hole in the roof if there's one at all. Most of the smoke just sits inside, seasoning the air in your lungs. Historians still argue whether this passive smoking contributed more to early mortality than disease or starvation. Either way, you're coughing before you can even sip a drink. Your mother offers you a crust of bread baked days ago, and now somewhere between chewy and medieval weapon. You try to gnaw on it and give up halfway through. To wash it down, there's small beer, weak ale safe enough to drink because water is often contaminated. Yes, even kids drink it. No, it doesn't get you drunk. You wish it did. You look over at your younger sibling eyes crusted with sleep and shirt inside out. They're eating the same thing and grinning like it's a feast. And hey, maybe it is. Some mornings there's nothing. A strange comfort settles in the kind born from routine. Sure, you're cold, itchy, and hungry, but you're alive. For now. You glance at the fire, now little more than glowing coals. The day awaits. Fields need tending, animals need feeding, and your body, well, it's already aching, but you'll push it anyway. You have no other choice. So you sigh, adjust your tunic, and step outside. The frost crunches underfoot. The wind bites through the seams of your clothes. And the sun, finally rising, offers the illusion of warmth. Welcome to the first hour of your medieval life. You've survived waking up. The rest of the day won't be nearly so kind. You shuffle toward the edge of the village stomach, protesting and jaw still sore from your failed attempt at bread. The frigid wind slices through your wool tunic and your hands are already stiff. Your first mission of the day isn't work. It's finding a place to, well, go again. See that early morning chamber pot visit. That was just round one. In the Middle Ages, people didn't have set bathroom routines. Your stomach obeyed the weather, your diet, and probably sheer medieval chaos. And it's obeying now with a stubborn churn that lets you know you need to go again. And urgently. There's no privacy. You can't exactly hang a do not disturb sign on a bush. You make your way behind the thatched sheds near the goat pens where nature doubles as a latrine. You find a vaguely dry patch of ground, turn your back to the village and do your business as quickly as you can. Leaves not in winter. Cloth you wish. Moss is the best option and it's frozen. So now your behind is not only cold but slightly exfoliated. In towns, you'd have a slightly different nightmare. Communal privies hanging over rivers if you're lucky. If you're unlucky, it's a cesspit, a hole filled with decades of human waste. Sometimes they collapse, swallowing people whole. Yes, really, there are records. One unlucky priest in 1184 fell into a latrine in Erfurt, Germany, and drowned. Historians still argue whether these collapses were common infrastructure failures or just rare but memorable horror stories. You head back toward the house, trying not to track too much filth on your bare feet. No soap, of course. You might rub your hands with ash or rinse them in the cold stream nearby. But clean is relative. You're pretty sure a squirrel died in that water last week, and you've already seen 3 other people using it this morning. Still, you rinse. One of your neighbors passes by and nods. He's carrying a basket of animal guts, probably heading to the tanner. The smell hits you like a punch. You nod back, trying not to gag. This is a world where smells have personalities, loud ones, especially when you're downwind of someone who's eaten turnips and hasn't bathed since Michaelmas. Back home, you're asked to empty the family chamber pot. It's your turn. You lift the wooden bowl gingerly, trying to keep it level. The lid doesn't quite fit. Your stomach turns again, but you manage not to spill anything as you tiptoe down the muddy path and pour the contents into the waste trench behind the homes. That trench has no liner, no drainage system, just old waste rain and prayers. It's not even mid-morning, and you've already been intimately acquainted with every bodily function you have. Welcome to the medieval waste cycle, intensely personal, deeply communal, and alarmingly smelly. By now, you're wondering why didn't anyone invent toilets sooner? Well, in grand castles or monasteries, you might find a garderobe, a vertical shaft with a seat built over it, which drops your waste into a pit or the moat. Some even added herbs or straw to fight the smell. Charming, right? But you, dear listener, are not in a castle. You're in a mud-walled hut with a family of 7 and a pig named Tilda. And you're itchy. Really itchy. You scratch your arm, then your scalp, and wince. Lice. They're not visitors here, they're residents. They live in your seams, your hair, and probably your soul by now. You pick one off your tunic and flick it into the fire. It's mildly satisfying, like the world's grossest video game achievement. You wonder, wouldn't people want to be clean? They did, but cleanliness was a tricky thing. Bathhouses existed in towns, public ones, co-ed even, but they weren't cheap. And by the later Middle Ages, many were shut down out of fear they spread disease or hosted immoral activity. So washing became rare. You might bathe once a season. Maybe. Soap, sort of. People used a rough blend of animal fat and lye when they could get it. It stung, smelled weird, and left you drier than your uncle's sermons. So you mostly rubbed with water and called it good. There's even a fringe theory that folks believed water opened the pores, letting in disease. Whether that's universally true or more of a modern exaggeration, historians still argue. But one thing's for sure, nobody's buying bubble bath. You check your fingernails and realize they're dark from yesterday's work and probably the day before that. Washing hands is reserved for high-status events like feasts or prayer rituals, and even then it's a quick splash, not a thorough scrub. Germ theory won't arrive for another 600 years, so no one's blaming microbes for your stomach bug. You'll just be told to pray more or drink something fermented. Or bleed yourself, but we'll get to that joyous experience later. A knock at your door brings a distraction, your neighbor's kid red-faced and panting, asking if your family's goat has wandered over. It hasn't. But you realize with dread that your goat hasn't been seen since yesterday afternoon. You groan and set out to look trudging through wet paths, your feet caked in a mix of mud, and you hope just mud. This too is part of medieval hygiene. Animals are everywhere. Chickens strut through homes. Dogs eat scraps straight off the floor. Cats keep mice at bay unless they're being blamed for witchcraft, in which case... Sorry, Whiskers. You hear a braying and find your goat tangled in some bramble, chewing on a tunic sleeve that somehow got thrown out. You sigh and drag her home, wondering how long it'll be before she eats your shoe. You pass the village priest along the way. He nods solemnly. His robes are cleaner than yours, but not by much. He smells strongly of incense, which is kind of like wearing Axe body spray to mask the absence of a bath. You wonder if saints got lice, too. Probably. By the time you get home, it's close to midday. You're filthy again. Your hands are blackened, your feet are numb, and your sense of smell is permanently damaged. And you haven't even started the hard labor part of your day yet. But for now, your bladder is empty, your goat is secured, and the fire has enough embers to last another hour. It's not comfort, but it's survival. And in the Middle Ages, that's about as good as it gets. Lunch isn't so much a meal as it is an intermission in your daily ordeal. Your body's already tired and the sun isn't even at its peak yet. But your family gathers around the fire anyway, bowls in hand, waiting for the pot to bubble. You sniff the steam, hoping for something hearty. Hope is crushed instantly. It's pottage again. Pottage is your default meal, a thick, soupy blend of whatever vegetables are still edible, maybe some grains if you're lucky, and the faintest whiff of flavor. Meat. Ha, that's for feast days or for the Lord's table, which you are absolutely not invited to. Today's blend includes cabbage, onions, and a single suspicious turnip. No salt. That's expensive and stored under lock and key by the wealthy. You chew slowly and try not to think about the texture, or the fact that this pottage is likely the third reheating of the same pot. As you eat, your older brother sharpens a hoe for the fields. Your mother checks your younger sibling's scalp for lice again. You glance at the ceiling where smoke clings to the rafters and settles into every fiber of your clothes, your hair, your lungs. Smoke inhalation isn't a concept yet, but if it were, you'd be the poster child. Historians still argue whether medieval hearth smoke was a slow killer or just another inconvenience, but one thing's clear, you haven't taken a full clean breath all day. Outside, the bell from the local church rings. It's not a call to prayer, it's a call to get moving. The fields won't tend themselves, and your Lord expects results. Your workday begins now, and trust me, the Middle Ages don't come with union breaks. You step into the daylight, squinting against the low sun. The mud sucks at your feet, and the cold wind finds every gap in your tunic. You head for the strip fields, long, narrow plots divided up among peasants. Your family has a few strips, and you know every inch of them. They're your burden and your curse. You grab a wooden plowshare and join your father, who's already knee-deep in mud. Oxen grunt and snort nearby, waiting to be led. You grip the plow and push. The blade slices through the earth barely. The soil's wet and full of stones. Your shoulders ache immediately. Medieval farming isn't quaint. It's brutal. You till the same ground that's been worked for generations with the same tools. Heavy wooden plows, iron-tipped if you're fortunate, drag through clay and sludge. You have no tractor, no fertilizer, just aching limbs and blind hope. You lose feeling in your fingers within the hour. Still, you keep going because if your crops fail, there's no supermarket fallback. No plan B. You pay rent and food to your Lord, and if your harvest is light, your family starves. You're not farming for profit. You're farming to not die. It's a rhythm you've known since childhood. Work, breathe, grunt, repeat. And every year you ask the same questions. Will the frost come too early? Will the cows get sick? Will bandits burn it all down before harvest? It's anxiety dressed up as agriculture. At one point, your neighbor's son starts shouting. He spotted something, possibly a rat nest, in the grain store. You and a few others rush over. Sure enough, sacks of barley have been gnawed through. You throw rocks at the rats as they scatter, laughing bitterly when one almost outruns your shoe. Rats are everywhere, and they're bold. They know you're tired. They know you won't catch them. Later, you take a moment to stretch your back. You glance around and see that the other workers look just as exhausted. One man clutches his side and mutters about a bad tooth. There's nothing to be done, no dentist, no pain relief. Just waiting for it to rot out or take you with it. A woman nearby is coughing violently into her sleeve. You shift a few feet away. You've seen people go from cough to coffin in less than a week. Diseases travel faster than gossip here. Smallpox, dysentery, typhoid, you name it, you've seen it, or at least buried someone who had it. Bathing won't save you. Prayers might. Maybe. Historians still argue whether communal living spread disease faster than poor hygiene alone, but really it's all just part of the delightful package. The bell rings again. Mid-afternoon. You haven't stopped once, but it's time to switch jobs from plowing to hauling. You help load bundles of kindling and animal fodder onto a wooden cart. The ox pulling it looks as miserable as you feel. You guide the beast down the winding path, stepping over puddles and dodging dung. You pass the blacksmith's hut. The heat pouring out of it is briefly comforting. You pause, soaking it in. The smith, a burly man with arms like logs, nods at you but keeps hammering. Sparks fly. The clang echoes. He's repairing horseshoes and blade edges, no time for chat. His hands are thick with calluses and soot. You envy him briefly. His job is dangerous, sure, but at least it's warm. By the time you return to your hovel, the light is fading. You've been outside for hours and your clothes are soaked with sweat and mud. You want to collapse, but you're still not done. Your mother hands you a bucket. It's your turn to fetch water from the village well. You drag yourself down the path again, gripping the iron handle tight. The well is a short walk, but the line is long. Several other villagers wait, huddled under cloaks, gossiping softly. You nod and listen. There's talk of a nearby village losing 3 children to the fever. Someone mutters about a wandering monk who claimed the end was near. Another says they saw lights in the sky, comets maybe. Omens, definitely. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly believed in these signs or just used them to make sense of chaos. But in a world without science or answers, the stars feel like messengers, not balls of gas. You reach the front of the line, lower the bucket, and hear the satisfying splash. You haul it up, muscles trembling. Water spills over your wrists. You carry it home carefully, trying not to trip. By the time you step inside, your knees almost buckle. But you made it. You worked the fields, hauled supplies, avoided a rat ambush, dodged disease, and endured a diet that could be best described as aggressively beige. And you still have lice. Congratulations, you're officially living the dream, or at least surviving it. You stumble into the hovel arms like jelly feet, numb and tingling from hours in the cold and mud. The fire is a pale flicker now, barely enough to warm your hands. Your mother stirring the pot again. Tonight's dinner looks eerily familiar. Another round of pottage. The turnip is still there. You're starting to suspect it's immortal. You lower yourself onto the bench, each joint cracking in protest. But no one else complains. This is just how evenings go. Quiet, smoky, and full of passive suffering. Your younger sibling tries to swat a flea crawling up their neck. They miss. It jumps onto your leg. You sigh. Welcome home. The door creaks open again. It's your uncle, well, your mother's cousin's husband's brother, but that counts as uncle here. He enters with a grin, holding a string of dead birds. Dinner just got a major upgrade. Pigeon. Possibly crow. You don't ask too many questions. The smell of fresh kill cuts through the fire smoke and old turnip, and for the first time today you smile. As he plucks feathers over the hearth, your family settles into evening mode. The kids sit cross-legged, poking each other. Your mother pulls out some weaving. Your father picks at a splinter in his toe with a knife that probably hasn't been washed since last Easter. Then the real entertainment begins: stories. Not Netflix, not podcasts, but they're just as dramatic and often more terrifying. Your grandfather leans forward, clearing his throat. Tonight's tale is about a man who stole from the Lord's orchard and was cursed to wander the woods forever, half wolf, half man. Your sibling gasps. You've heard this one before, but it still gives you chills. These stories aren't just for fun. They're warnings, memory keepers, oral history wrapped in horror. The line between folklore and religion here is foggy. The saints perform miracles, and so do the spirits in the woods. A candle flickers too hard, and it's a sign. A dog howls at midnight, and someone's dying soon. You listen, huddled close to the fire, sipping weak ale because water is dangerous. That bucket you carried earlier probably has animal droppings in it. Everyone drinks ale, even the kids. It's safer. Mildly fermented and barely alcoholic, but still enough to make your cheeks warm. You're halfway through your bowl when the door bangs open again. This time it's one of the Lord's messengers. Tall, cloaked, serious. He announces that taxes are due in 3 days and that a grain audit will be conducted tomorrow. Your father's face goes pale. You know exactly why. The last harvest was thin. You've already paid more than you could afford. Now they're coming to check if you've held back any for yourselves. Spoiler alert, you did. Everyone does. You'd starve otherwise. But if they find it, there'll be punishment. Maybe a fine, maybe the stocks, maybe worse. Historians still argue whether these inspections were truly about fairness or just another way to squeeze peasants dry, but the results feel the same fear. The messenger leaves, but the tension stays. You help your father move the hidden grain sack from under the bench to a spot in the loft behind old tools and broken baskets. Your heartbeat thuds in your ears. You don't want to sleep in the stocks tomorrow night. You remember the last man who did his feet froze before sunrise. Dinner finishes in silence. The fire is low now, casting long shadows. Your uncle's birds sizzle on a spit. They smell amazing, but they're for tomorrow. Feast food. Tonight is still pottage night, again. You clear your bowl and lie on your mat. It's straw stuffed into old sacks, and it smells like the goat. You think maybe the goat slept on it last week. You don't blame her. It's warm. You pull a wool blanket over your shoulders and close your eyes, but sleep doesn't come quickly. There's too much noise. Your sister's breathing loudly. Your mother's shifting in her sleep. The wind outside howls, rattling the walls. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hoots a sound you've been told means either wisdom or doom. Depends on who you ask. You hear rustling overhead. Probably rats. They live in the thatch. You try not to think about how one might fall on your face. Again, as your body finally begins to settle, your mind wanders. You think about your future. What choices do you have? You'll farm like your father. Marry someone from the village. Try not to have too many children unless you want to lose half of them to sickness. Maybe go to the market once a year, maybe see a traveling musician or a puppet show. But mostly, you'll work, eat, and sleep in a loop that never really ends. Unless war comes, or famine, or the plague. But let's not dwell on that now. You're finally drifting off, lulled by the creaks of the house and the distant sound of the blacksmith hammering late into the night. Just as you're about to fall asleep, your father gently shakes your shoulder. You groan. Turns out the goat got out again. You're back on your feet, chasing it down the path with a rope in hand. The stars are out clear and cold. You pause for a second breath, rising like smoke, and look up. The sky is gorgeous, unpolluted, uncluttered, deep black velvet sprinkled with shimmering light. You can see the Milky Way, and for a moment, just one, you don't feel like a miserable medieval peasant. You feel small, but in a good way. Like the world is vast and full of stories you'll never hear, mysteries you'll never solve. Then the goat headbutts you in the knee and bolts for the woods. And we're back. You sprint after it, praying she doesn't wander near the Lord's property. Last time she ate part of his fencing and someone had to pay in chickens. By the time you get her back and shut the gate tight, you're freezing again, fully awake and very done with goats. You lie back down, groaning softly. The straw pokes your ribs. Someone coughs. The owl hoots again. This time you decide it means wisdom. Sleep comes eventually, not restful, not deep, but enough to get you to tomorrow. Just, the rooster crows far too early. Again. You crack open one eye, hoping that it might still be nighttime, and you can drift back into the warm-ish embrace of your goat-scented straw mat. No such luck. The sky outside the cracks in the wall is already glowing faintly blue. Morning has arrived, dragging another day behind it like a soggy cloak. You sit up, groaning softly. Your limbs ache like you've been beaten with a sack of turnips, and considering how heavy turnips are, that's not far off. You glance around. Everyone's still asleep save your mother, who's already moving about the hearth, coaxing the fire back to life with the bellows. Smoke begins to rise again, curling up into the beams, thick and lazy. It's a new day, but it smells exactly like yesterday. There's no brushing of teeth, no splash of minty freshness. You chew a twig from the hazel bush outside. It's bitter, but it'll dislodge the worst of yesterday's barley. As you scrape your molars, you overhear your father whispering about the grain inspection. You suddenly remember what day it is. Right. You gulp down a ladle of lukewarm barley gruel. Mostly water, slightly grainy, slightly sour, and prepare for the worst. The Lord's reeve is coming. He's not the Lord himself, of course, but his steward, and he's got the authority to poke prod count and confiscate whatever he pleases. That includes your family's secret stash of dried peas. You all scramble into action. Your sister hides the smallest bag in the firewood pile. You lift a loose floorboard and nudge a second sack beneath it. Your father takes the last bit to a neighbor's barn, hoping they won't rat you out later. Historians still argue whether these inspections were regular or sporadic, but in your village they happen just often enough to keep everyone terrified. Soon enough, the reeve arrives flanked by two grim-looking men. He's got the look of someone who hasn't worked a field a day in his life, but knows exactly how much grain you should produce from yours. He sniffs the air like he can smell secrets. You and your father stand by while he pokes through baskets, lifts lids, taps barrels. He doesn't find the peas, thank every saint you know by name, but he scowls anyway, making a note on a stained bit of parchment. He says your family's owed portion seems suspiciously small. You consider explaining that the fields were half flooded this year, or that the ox fell ill, or that God simply didn't smile on your turnips, but you know better. Excuses are like fleas, everyone's got them, and they don't carry much weight. He moves on to the next house, but the tension lingers. Your mother's face is pinched. Your father mutters something under his breath about moving to the next village over where the reeve has a limp and visits less often. You're about to collapse on the bench when someone calls your name. It's one of the village boys, breathless, muddy, and visibly excited. A traveling merchant has set up at the edge of the woods just off the main road. You perk up. Travel and novelty are rare. You grab your outer tunic still damp from yesterday and jog toward the road. The merchant's cart is everything you dreamed of: brightly painted panels, jingling bells, and crates full of oddments. There are combs carved from bone-dried orange peels from faraway lands, and miracle of miracles, a length of dyed cloth in actual blue. Blue. You stare like it's treasure because it kind of is. That color means wealth, prestige. The church even. You've only ever seen it on priests and altar cloths. The merchant gestures to his wares, smiling with only half his teeth. You've got no coin, but you offer a few eggs and a well-braided length of wool. He squints, shrugs, and hands over a small tin whistle in exchange. You don't need it. It serves no practical purpose. But it's beautiful. It sounds like birdsong when you try it. You feel lighter. Until, of course, you return and discover your father isn't pleased. He calls it a foolish trade. You should have gotten salt or nails, something useful. You apologize and tuck the whistle into your belt, heart sinking. Joy is brief out here. Later, as the day wears on, the merchant's cart draws a small crowd. People murmur about news from afar. There's talk of a new king in the south, of more taxes, of a strange sickness in the cities. You shiver. Even though you live in a remote village, nothing stays distant forever. Even now, disease can roll in on a trade wagon. You head back home in the late afternoon just as the sun begins to tip westward. Your younger sibling is crying over a stubbed toe. Your mother's grinding barley into flour with a stone mill that makes your wrist hurt just watching it. Your job now is to collect kindling. You grab a basket and head for the edge of the woods. The forest is damp and ominous this time of year. Mushrooms sprout like tiny umbrellas, and the undergrowth smells of decay and mystery. You gather twigs in silence, keeping your ears open for rustling. You've heard stories: wolves, ghosts, old gods. Superstition is thick in these parts, and no one enters the woods lightly. As you bend to pick up a mossy branch, you spot something strange: a stone, carved with a spiral half buried under roots. You pause. Is it old, pagan, dangerous? Your heart pounds. Historians still argue whether villagers believed in older pre-Christian symbols or simply feared what they didn't understand. You don't wait to find out. You drop it, grab your basket, and bolt. That night you sit by the fire, too tired to talk. The barley cakes your mother baked are dry, but at least they're food. You chew slowly, thinking about the spiral stone, about the Reeves inspection, about the blue cloth and the whistle in your belt. All these tiny moments stitched together like threads in your tattered tunic. You stretch out on your mat again, grateful that just for now, no one's dying. No one's in the stocks. No wolves came from the woods. Today wasn't good exactly, but it wasn't catastrophic. In medieval times, that's a win. Outside, the stars blink on. You fall asleep with the whistle in your hand, its shape small and cool. Just in case you dream of birdsong, morning doesn't wake you gently. It punches you straight in the face with cold air and the sour stink of someone's feet too close to your head. You sit up bleary-eyed and reach for your tunic, which is still damp from yesterday's fog. You consider leaving it off just for spite, but your mother throws it at you anyway. And so, wrapped in scratchy wool and resignation, your day begins. Today is special, though. Not because anything good is happening, but because you're not working in the field. You're going to church. Don't get too excited. This isn't a Sunday sermon in a sunny cathedral with angelic choirs and flower arrangements. This is a compulsory soul-examining, Latin-filled endurance test in a stone box so cold it feels like the inside of a crypt. Which, come to think of it, it probably is. You trudge there with your family, slipping on the muddy path. The entire village is going except the miller who claims his wheel won't spin without him. He says this every week. The priest suspects something. Everyone suspects something. But no one dares accuse him because if he stops grinding grain, you stop having food. You arrive early, which is unfortunate. The earlier you arrive, the longer you have to stand. The benches are reserved for the truly old, the extremely rich, and the mysteriously influential. You are none of these things. So you shuffle and dip. Your fingers in holy water cross yourself automatically and squeeze into a corner near the wall where the wind somehow still finds you. The priest begins in Latin. You understand exactly 4 words, all of which mean you're a sinner. You nod solemnly like you're following every syllable. Everyone else does the same. Church is more about being seen than being enlightened. That and reminding you that hell is not only real, it's basically waiting for you like an angry landlord. The sermon drags. You cough once and immediately regret it. People glance. You could be contagious. That's the worst thing, to be in a place where most folks are one fever away from meeting their ancestors. Eventually, the priest begins the Eucharist. You approach the altar with downcast eyes and open hands, careful not to trip. The wafer sticks to your tongue like bark. The wine, not for you. That's only for the priest. You return to your corner and kneel on the stone floor, praying mostly for circulation to return to your legs. When the service ends, everyone files out, blinking into the gray daylight. Someone says something mildly funny about the miller's special relationship with his grindstone, and people laugh like they're not exhausted. It's the first sound of joy all morning. You head to the cemetery next door. It's what you do. You pray for your grandparents, your cousin who died last winter, a stillborn sibling you never met. The graves are marked with wooden crosses, or more often, nothing at all. You only know where to stand because your mother remembers. She leaves a sprig of rosemary, what little the herb garden produced this season, and you all stand in silence. It's not a sad moment exactly, just expected. Death is always hanging around in the background like a nosy neighbor who refuses to move. On the way home, you overhear someone talking about relics. A monk passed through the village last week, claiming to have a piece of Saint Sebastian's rib. Or was it a splinter from St. Andrew's walking stick? Historians still argue how authentic these relics really were, but people believe. You believe. Because belief is comfort, and comfort is rare. You stop by the village cross where a woman sits spinning thread. She sings softly to herself, her spindle dancing. Your mother nods to her. You watch her hands for a moment, quick, graceful, full of purpose. There's something peaceful about it. Repetitive? Predictable. You envy that. Back home, the pottage simmers again. New flavor today leak. You swear you feel a tear forming. You help your father repair a fence post while it cooks. It's not your job, but you want to stay busy. Still thinking about graves and Latin sermons and rib bones? Distraction helps. The afternoon light slants long and golden. It's the kind of sunlight that makes even mud look poetic. You sit on the bench outside sharpening a stick into a rough spoon. No reason, just something to do. Your sibling plays nearby chasing a beetle with single-minded enthusiasm. You hear the faint clanging of a hammer in the distance, probably the blacksmith again. That man never sleeps. The quiet is suddenly broken by shouting. A group of villagers rush past your home heading toward the edge of the woods. You grab your stick, useless weapon though it is, and follow. There's a commotion by the stream. A man's cart has tipped over, spilling barrels into the water. One barrel cracks open, releasing a cloud of flour that floats downstream like a ghost. The man is shouting curses, but no one helps right away. It's not that people are cruel, it's just if you break your back helping and then can't work tomorrow, who's going to feed you? You step forward, grip the edge of the cart, and heave. Another man joins. Together you drag it upright. The barrel is ruined, but he claps you on the back and promises a loaf of bread as thanks. That's more valuable than you'd like to admit. As evening falls, the scent of hearth smoke fills the village. Windows glow with firelight. A dog barks. Someone plays a three-note melody on a flute. It might be your whistle, you realize. You pat your belt. It's gone. Probably fell out in the woods. Or the church. Or the cart scramble. You feel oddly gutted by the loss. But also, maybe someone else needed it more. You return to the house where your family waits around the fire. The leeks are indeed divine. The pottage has never tasted so alive. You eat slowly, watching the flames lick the edges of the pot. Your mother hums a soft tune from her childhood. Your father nods off mid-chew. You lie down for sleep again, already bracing for tomorrow. Your knees ache, your stomach is still half empty. Your Latin is no better, but your hands feel strong. And somewhere out there, a bit of birdsong still lingers. You wake in the dead of night. Not because you wanted to, of course, but because your little brother is crying again. Something about a bad dream, or maybe a stomach ache, or possibly the rats. You hear them two tiny claws tapping through the thatch above, dropping flecks of dirt onto your face. It's either that or a bat. You're not sure which is worse. You roll over and try to sleep, pulling your cloak tighter, but sleep doesn't come easy in a one-room house filled with 6 people, a goat, and a full chamber pot. You take shallow breaths through your mouth and wait for the darkness to end. When morning finally crawls over the hills like a reluctant beast, it brings with it a new horror market day. You might be thinking, oh, that sounds fun. Colorful stalls, music, fresh fruit, maybe even a treat. No, market day is a test. A gauntlet of bartering, shouting livestock poop, and the eternal hope that someone will pay 2 coins for that wheel of cheese you aged in the corner behind the firewood. The smell earthy. The taste regret. You and your mother pack the goods into a wicker basket. Some eggs, a bit of wool, dried onions, and the aforementioned cheese. Then you set off down the dirt road toward the market square, your feet already sore from the walk you haven't even finished yet. The square is bustling. That's the polite word. Realistically, it's chaotic, muddy, loud, and smells like if a barn exploded inside a fishmonger's dreams. Chickens roam freely. A cow tries to eat a cart. Someone shouts about stolen turnips. You stake out a little space by a leaning post and begin laying out your meager offerings. A man in a tattered cloak eyeballs the cheese and sneers. You force a smile. Local, aged 2 months. He sniffs. Smells like it. Somehow, despite this glowing endorsement, the cheese is not purchased. Your mother does better. She trades half the onions for a spool of better thread, and a woman gives her 2 bent copper coins for the eggs. A man tries to haggle you down to a single bean for the wool. A single bean. You tell him no. He scoffs and says it's not even good wool. You resist the urge to throw it at him. A traveling friar stands near the church steps, holding up a wooden box and preaching loudly about sin and indulgences. He offers to write down your family's names in his prayer book for a coin, guaranteed entrance to heaven, he says. Historians still argue whether these friars were true believers or opportunistic fundraisers. You suspect both. Your mother gives him a coin anyway. Can't hurt, right? You wander the stalls while she chats with the herbalist. One vendor has dyed ribbons brilliant reds and greens. Another offers a carved spoon that looks like art. You want both. You can afford neither. You settle for admiring them from a respectful distance. In the middle of the square, there's a small crowd forming around a man with a monkey. A monkey? You didn't even know such creatures were real. It wears a tiny vest and steals a crust of bread from someone's pouch. People cheer. You stare. Hard. You'll dream about that monkey for months. But then there's a commotion near the stocks. Someone's being locked in an older boy you recognize. He tried to steal a loaf of bread, apparently. The baker caught him, and the constable took it from there. Now he's stuck there all day while people jeer and some woman throws cabbage at his head. It's supposed to teach everyone a lesson. You don't feel particularly enlightened. After a long afternoon of bartering, you've made just enough to justify the trip. A few items are gone. You're heading home with some salt, a new spool of thread, and a slightly better mood than when you arrived. Your mother gives you a nod like that's a decent outcome. In medieval terms, no one threw mud at us qualifies as a success. Back home, the men are repairing a collapsed bit of roof. You help clambering up onto the sloped beams with a handful of wooden shingles. It's dizzying work. Your foot slips once and you briefly think, well, that's it. But you catch yourself on a splintered beam and haul yourself back up. You feel alive in that moment, but also terrified of heights, so you don't linger. Dinner is better than expected boiled peas with the last bit of pork fat. It's not meat exactly, but it tastes like meat, and that's close enough. You tell your siblings about the monkey. They stare like you've described a dragon. Later, the elder from a neighboring hamlet visits to talk to your father. Something about land boundaries or a shared ox or a pig that wandered too far. You listen quietly from the corner, chewing the end of a reed. Village politics are complex. Everyone knows someone who owes someone who once borrowed something and never returned it. The sun dips low. The sky fades to lavender. You start making candles with your mother, dipping wicks into hot tallow over and over. Your hands smell awful, but it's kind of peaceful work. You hum a tune as you dip. She joins in. Just before bed, your father hands you a small coin, half of today's earnings. It's not much, but it's yours. You turn it over in your palm, feeling its weight. You're going to save it for what you're not sure. Maybe for ribbon, maybe for your own spoon, or just in case another monkey shows up. You lie down on the mat watching the candle flicker. Today was crowded, messy, strange, and a little magical. You still smell like cheese, but you kind of don't mind. You wake up sore. Not just from yesterday's rooftop acrobatics or the eternal lump under your sleeping mat, but from something deeper. A creeping weariness that makes your bones feel centuries old. Unfortunately, medieval society doesn't recognize mental health days. You drag yourself upright, stomach grumbling, and rub a crust of sleep from your eye. Your sister is already at the hearth poking yesterday's ashes, trying to coax flame from cold coals. You're on water duty today. That sounds simple. Fetch water, bring it back. But no, not here. Not now. The nearest stream is a long walk downhill, and the wooden pails are leaky. The handles chafe your palms. One's been patched with string and hope. Still, it's what needs doing. You grab the pails and nod to your mother and head out. The path to the stream is muddy and rutted. You nearly lose a shoe in one patch. The forest hums with morning noise birds, distant dogs, someone shouting in frustration at a cow. You reach the stream and crouch to fill the pails. The water's clean enough today. Sometimes it's cloudy or has things floating in it you'd rather not identify. You give thanks to whoever's listening. You take a moment to rest before the walk back. That's when you hear it a shriek. Not the animal kind, human, and not happy. You freeze. Silence follows. Then a second voice, angry and sharp. You don't move, just listen. After a moment, there's rustling and two men burst into view, shouting at each other. One is holding a stick, the other a bag. They don't notice you. You slip away slowly, water forgotten. Back at the village, things are tense. Turns out someone's pig has been stolen. Again. Probably by someone from the next village over. These border skirmishes don't involve swords and armor. They involve pigs, hens, firewood, and occasionally fencing disputes. There's talk of retaliation. Your father advises caution. Others want justice. Justice in medieval terms is often informal. You decide to stay very, very out of it. There's one person who isn't troubled, though, the village wise woman. She sits near the edge of the green, stirring something suspicious in a pot. Children give her a wide berth. You, curious as ever, edge closer. She's grinding herbs with a mortar the size of your head. Lavender mint, something sharp and metallic. She mutters to herself. Some people say she's a healer. Others say she's a witch. Historians still argue whether wise women were mostly respected or mostly feared. You suspect the answer is both. She glances at you. Thirsty. You nod. She hands you a cup of something warm and bitter. You sip. It tastes like wet hay and regret. But your stomach feels better. You've got a shadow on you, she says half to herself. Best sleep facing the door tonight. You don't ask. You don't want to know. You help your father dig post holes for a new fence in the afternoon. It's hard work, and your hands blister again. Gloves. You don't have any. Not unless you count wrapping your hands in bits of cloth and pretending. The sun beats down like it's personally offended. You stop every few minutes to wipe sweat from your brow with a sleeve that's already soaked. Afterward, your mother teaches you how to spin flax into thread. It's difficult. Your fingers keep slipping. The fibers not. But eventually you get it going slow and uneven, but real. You grin. She pretends not to notice, but you can tell she's proud. Dinner is meager again, mostly bread and greens. But you earn a second piece for your spinning. That's as close to a raise as you'll ever get. As twilight descends, the entire village gathers near the central fire. It's storytelling night. An old man with a face like wrinkled leather begins, voice raspy but strong. He talks about giants in the mountains and a talking fox who tricked a nobleman and a brave girl who turned into a swan. You lean in, eyes wide. The younger kids gasp at all the right parts. Even your grumpy uncle laughs once. Then someone starts singing. Not well, mind you, but with heart. A bawdy tune about a night, a cow, and a very unfortunate misunderstanding. You laugh until your sides ache. For a moment, all is warm and whole. The night smells of wood smoke and your cheeks glow from the fire. A few sparks drift upward like tiny stars. Then the bell rings. Once, twice. That means a rider is coming. Everyone quiets. You all peer into the dark. A figure approaches, mud-splattered cloak torn. A messenger from the next village, panting and wide-eyed. He says something about soldiers' taxes and a census. Your stomach drops. New taxes mean fewer coins for bread. Soldiers mean trouble. A census means everyone gets counted and questioned. And when authorities start counting, someone always ends up missing. The village elder promises to meet with him in the morning. People disperse slowly, murmuring. You walk home under a heavy sky. Later that night, you sit up in bed thinking about shadows and witches, soldiers, and songs. You clutch your coin from market day and turn it over in your hand. It's still yours. That's something. Sleep finally comes slow and soft. You dream of foxes and flax. And maybe just maybe that talking monkey again. The next morning, things feel different. It's not louder or quieter, not busier, but there's a tension in the air like everyone's holding their breath. Word spreads fast in a medieval village even without phones or gossip apps. Before you even finish tying your belt, you've heard the whispers. The messenger from last night brought more than news, he brought orders. Royal ones. You trail after your father toward the meeting. The elder stands by the well scroll in hand, squinting at the wax seal like it's cursed. A few villagers gather arms, folded faces grim. A soldier, yes, a real one, is present too. He's dusty, tired, and clearly wants to be anywhere else. His chainmail clinks softly as he shifts from foot to foot. The scroll says every able-bodied male over 12 is to be registered. For defense, for potential labor, for taxes, always taxes. Historians still argue whether these medieval surveys were genuine attempts at administration or just convenient ways to squeeze more coin from peasants. Either way, you're now officially someone's number on a list. The soldier does a head count. Your name is scratched into a ragged ledger by a man who smells like ink and horses. You're assigned to mark your first official documentation. You don't know whether to feel important or hunted. That same afternoon, you're pulled aside to help fortify the road. Something about maintaining the king's peace. In practice, this means you and a handful of others are dragging logs, digging ditches, and trying to look like you're being productive while praying no one asks for actual carpentry. You quickly learn there are 3 kinds of medieval labor agricultural construction, and we swear this is important public work. Today is the latter. Your hands blister again. You ask for a break and someone laughs. At midday, the soldier returns with a new announcement. A small detachment of guards will be passing through tomorrow. They expect lodging, food, and local hospitality. You all know what that means. Hospitality on your coin, your bread, your beds. Your father looks angry, but he says nothing. No one says anything. Saying things gets people into trouble. By evening, your house is swept, the table set with your best pottery, 2 chipped bowls, and a wooden spoon. And you've been warned not to speak unless spoken to. You ask if the guards are dangerous. Your mother doesn't answer. Dinner is quiet. You eat quickly and then help patch a hole in the thatch roof. Again. That roof is held together with straw tar and shared anxiety. As the stars come out, the local priest stops by. He's youngish, wears threadbare robes, and smells like candle wax and stale wine. He gives your family a blessing and a few words of reassurance. Something about God watching over the righteous. You nod politely, but you're thinking more about the guards than heaven. Later in bed, you stare at the ceiling, trying not to imagine what tomorrow will bring. You try to focus on small things. The way your little brother snores. The distant hoot of an owl. The coin under your blanket warm from your hand. Sleep is slow, and then it's dawn. You wake to clattering hooves and a trumpet that sounds like someone stepped on a goose. The guards are here. You scramble out of bed, straighten your tunic, and rush to the village green. 6 men on horseback, all in mismatched armor and arrogant expressions. They look around like they own everything they see. One dismounts and announces himself as Sir Tolan of Blackmere. You try not to laugh at the name. They demand food first, then drink, then lodging. 2 are assigned to your home. You fetch water. Again. You serve stale bread and watery ale like it's a royal feast. They barely notice you, too busy bragging about some skirmish near the coast and complaining about fleas. You sit in the corner trying to make yourself invisible. One asks if you've seen any outlaws nearby. You shake your head. He narrows his eyes like he's not sure if you're hiding something or just stupid. Your father tries to stay polite. Your mother doesn't speak at all. The guards settle in for the night. One snores loudly. The other keeps playing with his dagger, flipping it in the air and catching it with annoying precision. You don't sleep much. How could you? But they leave in the morning early without so much as a thanks. Just like that, they're gone along with half a loaf of bread and one of your spoons. Your father sighs and scratches at the dirt. Could have been worse, he mutters. You don't ask how. That day, no one works very hard. The fields wait, but so does rest. You help gather firewood, fetch more water, mend a rip in your tunic. Simple things, safe things. You visit the wise woman again. She offers you a charm twine knotted around a pebble. For protection, she says. You wear it just in case. Historians still debate whether such charms were psychological comfort or genuine belief. Either way, it's something to hold on to. At dinner, your little sister asks if the soldiers will come back. Your parents don't answer. You all eat quietly. Later, you go outside alone and look up at the stars. You think about your name in a ledger, your mark, your blisters, the sound of hooves. It's not that you feel powerless exactly. It's that you are, but you're still here, still holding on, still counting stars. The days blend together like spilled ink. You rise, work, eat, sleep, and repeat. The fields don't care about your worries. The sun beats down. The rain soaks your clothes. The goats nibble the scraps you drop. You start to notice the little things you never did before. The way the village cat stalks the rats by moonlight. The sound of the blacksmith's hammer ringing through the air, steady and reassuring. The scent of fresh bread, baking drifting from the oven near the mill. One morning you find a strange bird's feather on your doorstep, blue and green, shimmering like a secret. You slip it into your pocket, wondering where it came from. Maybe from that traveling merchant who passed last week, or maybe just a gift from the wind. You ask your mother about it, but she just smiles and says some things are mysteries. You like that answer. That week, a traveling minstrel arrives. He sets up near the market square with a lute and a bright red hat. You gather around as he sings tales of distant lands, dragons, and impossible loves. His voice is smooth like honey, but his stories are wild. He tells of a city where people ride giant beasts and live in towering stone castles. You wish you could go there. The minstrel sells small trinkets, a wooden whistle, a carved bone, a pouch of dried herbs. You spend your coin on a whistle and try to make it sing. It sounds more like a dying bird, but you keep trying. At night, the village feels less heavy. You hear laughter from neighbors' houses, the scrape of a chair, the rustle of children chasing fireflies. For a moment, you almost forget about taxes, soldiers, and missing pigs. But not quite. One evening, you overhear your parents talking in hushed voices. Something about a nearby raid, burned farms, and fleeing families. The border tensions are rising. You wonder if you'll be next. You sneak outside and watch the stars. You think about how small you are in this vast, harsh world. You clutch your whistle and blow a shaky note. Tomorrow you'll work the fields again. You'll fetch water. You'll help with chores. You'll try to survive. And maybe you'll dream of dragons. The dawn feels colder than usual, and the sky wears a dull, bruised purple as you step outside. Today isn't like any other day. There's a nervous energy crackling through the village like static before a storm. People talk in low voices, glancing toward the horizon where smoke curls upward, a dark finger marking danger. You overhear your father discussing plans with the elder. They're debating whether to send a messenger to the Lord's castle or prepare defenses themselves. Historians still argue whether medieval villages ever truly defended themselves, or if surrender was often the only option. Right now, you're too distracted to care, which is true. You're assigned to help fortify the village's gate. It's nothing fancy, a wooden barrier held together by hope and rusty nails. You wield a hammer, awkwardly pounding in a nail that bends instead of straightening. The sun rises higher, beating down mercilessly, but you keep at it. Your hands sting. Your muscles ache. You realize you've never felt this exhausted before. Maybe that's why people sometimes drink ale before noon, even if it's frowned upon. You catch a glimpse of the wise woman who watches from a distance. She's muttering something under her breath, waving her hands over a bundle of herbs. She gives you a fleeting smile, one that seems both comforting and sad. Midday brings a brief reprieve. You eat cold bread and cheese beneath a tree, savoring the rare shade. A group of children play nearby, their laughter a fragile thread holding the moment together. Suddenly, a distant horn sounds. Your heart leaps. You drop your bread and rush toward the gate. Villagers scramble, eyes wide and breaths sharp. A rider appears over the hill, galloping, hard dust trailing behind. It's a messenger, breathless and wild-eyed. He shouts urgent words, soldiers approaching fast, not friendly ones this time. The village must prepare to hide, to flee, or to fight. Panic and resolve ripple through the crowd. Your father grabs your arm, eyes fierce yet fearful. Help gather the children, he orders. You do as told, herding kids into the stone cellar beneath the granary. It's dark and cramped, filled with the scent of earth and stale grain. The children whisper questions, but you shush them gently. Outside, chaos reigns. You hear shouting, the clatter of armor, the sharp crack of a whip. Horses whinny, dogs bark. Somewhere nearby, glass breaks. You clutch your charm tight. The pebble is cool against your palm, grounding you. Hours pass. The world outside seems to stretch and compress all at once. Finally, footsteps descend the cellar stairs. Your father's face appears streaked with grime and sweat. It's over for now, he says. They took what they wanted and left. You emerge to find your village battered but standing. The fields are trampled. The fence is broken. Your favorite goat is missing. You're tired in a way that runs deep, bone-weary and soul-weary. That night you lie awake thinking about the fragility of this life. About how small acts, hammering a nail, whispering a charm, feel like rebellion. And you wonder if you'd last a day in these times. Morning arrives pale and hesitant, as if the world itself is still recovering from last night's chaos. You wake with a sore throat and an unsettled feeling in your stomach. Your clothes still smell faintly of smoke and fear. The village is quieter than usual. The usual clatter of daily chores feels subdued, as if everyone is waiting for something to happen, though no one says what. You wander toward the brook to refill your water pails, stepping carefully over broken branches and trampled grass. The once familiar path feels strange, almost hostile. A fox darts past, its fur matted and eyes sharp. It pauses, looks at you, and disappears into the underbrush. You splash cool water on your face, savoring the sharp freshness. The simple act feels like a small victory. Back in the village, rumors swirl. Someone saw smoke rising from the next valley. Bandits, rebels. Nobody knows for sure. The elder calls a meeting. People gather around the fire pit, faces drawn and worried. He talks about calling for help from the Lord, but the journey is dangerous and could take days. The village healer. Yes, the wise woman again offers to treat those injured or ill. You notice the bruises on your neighbor's arms and the cough rattling from the miller's wife. She works quietly, grinding herbs, wrapping poultices, muttering prayers. Her reputation swings between healer and witch, and you sense that she's aware of both perceptions. Historians still debate whether such healers were truly trusted community members or scapegoats in times of trouble. You find yourself helping her gather medicinal plants from the edge of the forest. The smell of crushed leaves and roots fills the air, earthy and pungent. She teaches you to identify yarrow, chamomile, and nettles. You feel a flicker of pride learning something useful. Later, you help mend the roof that was broken in the raid. The wise woman's charm still hangs around your neck, warm against your skin. You tap it lightly as if it might grant courage. In the afternoon, the traveling merchant returns, setting up his stall once more. You wander, overdrawn by his colorful fabrics and shiny trinkets. He tells tales of distant lands and strange customs, some so bizarre they make you laugh. One story involves a king who supposedly bathed in wine to cure his ailments. You wonder if anyone would ever do that for real. At night, as you settle in, your thoughts drift. You realize that surviving in this world isn't just about strength or skill. It's about resilience, the quiet, stubborn kind. You pull your blanket close, the rough wool scratching at your skin, and close your eyes. The village breathes with you. The stars watch over you. You last another day. You awaken to the sharp scent of smoke curling through the air once again. This time, it's closer, too close. The sky above the village has a faint orange glow, and distant shouts carry on the wind like ominous echoes. You hurriedly pull on your worn boots, heart pounding. The villagers scramble, grabbing what little they can carry. The elder shouts orders, though his voice cracks with age and exhaustion. Your mother clutches a bundle of cloth containing your sister's favorite doll, her hands trembling. You try to steady her with a reassuring smile, but your own fear bubbles just beneath the surface. You join the crowd at the edge of the village, watching as flames lick the edge of the woods. Smoke chokes the air thick and bitter, stinging your eyes and throat. The animals scatter in all directions, birds taking flight, sheep, bleating dogs barking wildly. Stories swirl about who the attackers might be. Bandits, rival clans, foreign raiders. Historians still argue the extent to which medieval villages faced constant threat versus occasional raids, but right now the danger feels painfully real. Your father pulls you aside, voice low but urgent. We have to move. Now. You gather a small sack with essentials, bread, cheese, a flask of water. You can't help but glance back at your home, wondering if you'll ever see it again. The journey is slow and grueling. You trudge through mud past fields, scorched black beneath a sky heavy with smoke. The road is crowded with others fleeing similar fates, a desperate tide of humanity moving toward uncertain safety. Night falls and you camp under a canopy of trembling stars. You share stories with other refugees, tales of loss, hope, and stubborn survival. You try to sleep, but your mind races with questions and fears. In the flickering firelight, a traveling monk approaches and offers blessings. His presence is calming, but you can't shake the feeling that even faith feels fragile here. You clutch your charm, tighter than ever, a talisman against the unknown. As you drift into uneasy sleep, you realize that survival isn't just about fighting or fleeing. It's about holding on to hope when everything else feels lost. Morning breaks with a pale, uncertain light filtering through the leaves. You wake to the distant sound of church bells, oddly comforting amidst the chaos. The refugees have made camp near a small abbey, its stone walls worn but sturdy, a silent guardian in this fragile world. You wander through the camp, noticing faces etched with exhaustion and resilience. Children play quietly near the fire, trying to forget for a moment the loss that brought them here. Elders share quiet prayers, their voices barely audible. You help unload supplies brought by monks, bread, salted meat, and fresh water. The generosity feels like a small miracle. The abbey is a sanctuary, but not a fortress. You know this safety might be temporary. As you explore the stone cloisters, you hear a story from one of the monks about a saint who protected the weak during invasions. His statue stands in the courtyard, weathered but dignified. You touch the cold stone and wonder about faith in times of despair. Later, you join a gathering where villagers and monks discuss rebuilding and returning home. Opinions vary. Some urge caution, waiting for the Lord's army. Others want to reclaim their land immediately. Historians still debate the effectiveness of feudal military support during such crises, often slow and unreliable. The wise woman's charm feels heavier now, more like a weight than protection. But you keep it close. As the sun sets, you sit beneath a tree and listen to the wind whisper through the leaves. The world feels simultaneously fragile and unyielding. You realize survival is a story written in moments like these: small acts of kindness, shared meals, whispered prayers. You breathe in the cool evening air, feeling the quiet strength of those around you. And for the first time in days, you feel a flicker of peace. The days stretch on, blending into a slow rhythm of rebuilding and resilience. You watch as the village gradually returns from ruin, wooden beams replacing shattered walls, fresh soil tilled where fire once scorched the earth. Life insists on pushing forward stubborn as the weeds sprouting through the cracks. You find yourself helping wherever you can, hauling stones, planting seeds, sharing stories. The scars of recent events linger like shadows, but the community's spirit begins to kindle hope. Children laugh again, chasing each other through the dirt paths, their voices bright and untethered. You realize survival in medieval times was never just about strength or skill. It was about enduring the relentless uncertainties of life with courage and quiet determination. You think about all the things you take for granted now: clean water at the turn of a tap, a roof that doesn't leak the luxury of choosing your path. Historians still argue how ordinary people experienced these centuries, but you now understand one truth. The past was raw, unpredictable, and often unforgiving. You clutch the charm one last time before slipping it into the earth beneath the oldest oak in the village square, a small offering, a silent thank you for guiding you through. Night falls softly, the stars twinkling like distant promises. You lay back on the cool grass, the scent of wildflowers and earth soothing your senses. The world feels vast yet intimate, filled with stories written by countless souls who came before and those who will follow. As you close your eyes, you carry with you the echoes of a time long gone but never forgotten. A time when surviving a single day was a triumph, and every breath was a quiet victory. Now you've walked through that world not unscathed, but unbroken. And maybe, just maybe that's enough. The evening winds down gently now. Your breath slows, matching the soft rhythm of a quiet night. The distant hoot of an owl blends with the rustling leaves, crafting a lullaby of old worlds and new dreams. Whatever worries or stresses weighed on you, they dissolve into the calm darkness. You're safe here. You're warm. You're home, at least for tonight. Let the past echoes fade softly as you drift deeper into rest. Tomorrow is another day, but for now, surrender to the quiet peace of this moment. Sweet dreams.